Hey guys, a new impressions video on this game, Drakengard 3. This is an interesting game. I'm a bit late to this game. This game came out a while ago. Now, I was very iffy on this game. I didn't know if I wanted it or not because I had played Drakengard 1 and 2 on the PS2. I didn't do a video on them, but I played them a few months ago, and I gotta say, I really didn't care for those games. I'm not really gonna go into detail why. I hated like the Dynasty Warriors style of gameplay and just I like the first game had an interesting story and characters. Like it had like it's known for like really fucked up, like a really fucked up story and characters. And I liked that part of it, but the gameplay was just so tedious that it's like I got the one ending, and I know there's a bunch of different endings in that game, and I stopped playing it. And then Drakengard 2 I played for maybe a couple hours and realized it was the exact same shit in terms of gameplay, just like with a weaker story and characters. I just was like, fuck it, I can't do this. So like before this game came out, I just wasn't interested in it because I just didn't care for the first two. But when this did eventually come out, and people I know were praising it, Crack Lotus was saying how amazing this game was. TG Apuleius was saying how great this game was. I thought, well, let me look more into this game, and I found out that the combat in this is quite a bit different, and the level design itself is quite a bit different than Drakengard 1 and 2. And the story and characters really appealed to me from what I saw. So you know what? I said, I thought, you know what? I'll give it a chance. I'll give it a chance. I'll take the risk. And I'm glad I did. I love this game. It's fantastic. Well, I wouldn't say fantastic. It's a good game. Don't get me wrong. Like there are definitely problems with this game. It didn't review too well. It got like a bunch of 5s and 6s, which I don't think it's that. Like I mean, those are generally average scores, but I think it's quite a bit better than that. That said, though, I do have a lot of frustrations with this game. I'm going to talk about that a bit later, because this game does something that just pisses me off so much. But let's just start talking about this game with the story. I'm not going to say too much. You play this character here, Zero. She's an intoner. I don't want to talk specifically about what an intoner is, but you kind of go around with your dragon, Mikhail. There's like a prologue sequence that has some events before like the main game. I don't want to spoil that stuff, but where did I start with this game? Like the story in this game is insane. It's weird. It's hilarious. It's twisted. It covers all sorts of emotions. I really enjoy it. But you play as Zero, and you're basically your goal is to kill your 5 sisters. Conveniently named 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You'll know why that is. And she's got like this flower stuck in her eye. There's a lot of weird shit at first that you're just like, what's going on? And the game kind of slowly explains things to you, why you're gone on this quest to kill your 5 sisters that rule these different regions of the world. Why why she wants to kill your sisters, like how important they are. This dragon that you're with, Mikhail, like the relationship between her and Mikhail, like at first you might think that she hates this dragon that she's with. The dragon's very young, so, and it's got like a really young voice actor, and like he almost acts like a baby a lot. It's where a lot of the game's humor comes in, but Zero's always getting very frustrated at him. There's reasons for that. And that leads me to the characters, because, I mean, the story in this game is interesting and definitely goes to some pretty crazy places, but I think the characters are what stood out to me the most in this game. Zero, in particular, is a really strong protagonist. She's definitely a badass, but she's very mean at times, too. I don't want to talk, again, give out too many details, but she's definitely a very interesting character that's just has a lot of interesting character development as you go throughout the game. Each of your 5 sisters has their own disciple that will join you once you kill your sisters, and they have some interesting qualities to them, I have to say. like there's again, I don't want to spoil this kind of stuff because it's definitely, this is one of those games that you really have to experience. Like you have to experience the story. It's an experience game. While the gameplay is good, the story and characters are what ultimately are gonna compel you to finish it, and just to see just how fucked up this game gets. It's not anything super crazy, but like the dialogue, for instance, is like very, it's very like frank with its like there's a lot of like sexual dialogue in here, a lot of swearing. It tackles a lot of like taboo themes that I wasn't really expecting. It's kind of refreshing to see in a video game, to be honest. But yeah, it's a really great cast of characters, and a really strong story all the way up until the end. I know I've been very vague with like the details, but it is something I really don't want to spoil. But I think it's definitely enjoyable. I liked it better than Drakengard 1 and 2, like the story. I didn't really see most of 2, but there's 4 different endings in this. Each ending, you kind of have to get the ending D, the D ending, to get the true ending. Like, that's the true ending. It's a pain in the ass to get, by the way, but I do recommend going for that. This game's like a 30-hour game if you do go for that. So it's a lot longer than it first seems once you get that ending A. And I really like the ending of this game. And another thing I wasn't expecting with this game is the emotional moments. There's a lot of them in this game. It's very humorous at times. It's very dark at times, but it's also, there's a lot of like tragedy and like sadness with this game, in the story, which I like. Like again, it covers so many emotions. This game, it's always providing you with different things. Like I don't know, it's really engaging. Not quite to the level of Nier, but done by the same guys that did this. And overall, I still prefer Nier quite a bit more than this game. But yeah, really, really strong story and characters. Gameplay wise is where whereas this game is quite a bit different. I feel well, not quite a bit, but different enough for me to enjoy it this time than Drakengard 1 and 2. Those games were very like, they were mission based Dynasty Warriors-esque games where you had like these massive battlefields with hundreds of enemies on screen, and you were just slaughtering a bunch of them at once, collecting weapons, upgrading those weapons. And then you could like call your dragon and ride on your dragon, do like fire breathing attacks, and lay waste to hundreds of soldiers. It was really repetitive, really boring, and very frustrating. You'd constantly get like put into like every time an enemy would hit you, you'd get stun locked for like 5 seconds. It was really annoying, and you had these really annoying objectives, and the missions were long with hardly any checkpoints. It just wasn't my type of game in terms of gameplay. Those two. In this game, you're basically it's still mission by mission. It's still mission based, so it's a pretty linear game. But these levels are more like giant pathways. I've heard a lot of people reference like Final Fantasy 13, and yeah, it can be similar to that, where it's usually just one singular pathway. And then sometimes there might be a branch off to get like a hidden treasure chest or whatever. And that sounds that sounds bad, but I liked it. I mean, I liked that change. You're not fighting hundreds of guys. You're fighting a lot of guys in these levels, but the levels just don't go on for too long. Some of them do, but most of them don't. So you're just kind of going from point A to point B, killing enemies. You'll have like light puzzle solving elements sometimes, even some platforming, which I wasn't too big on the platforming elements, but there's not really that much of them. But yeah, the level design, it's very simplistic, but it's never too frustrating. And the combat itself is your typical hack and slash combat. It's not like the flashiest or most in-depth combat I've ever seen, but it's fun. There's a parrying system, like with Drakengard 1, plenty of weapons to collect. I guess the difference too with this game is you've got like 4 weapon types: spear, chakrams, bracers, and swords. And they're good for different enemy types. So if you're fighting enemies with shields, you'll want to use a spear to like break through their defenses. And there's like air enemies that you'll need to use the chakrams for to kill them at long range. So I think that adds a tiny bit of a strategy to the game that I liked. Of course, you also have the dragon stuff. I didn't feel like the dragon stuff's interesting too, because this is where like a lot of the variety of the gameplay comes in, where you'll have like a couple levels where it's just hack and slash point A to point B combat, and then the next level it will be like a Panzer Dragoon style level where you're on your dragon and you're locking onto enemies and shooting fire at them. And those levels I actually thought were pretty fun. It's where you're in confined spaces that the dragon levels aren't too fun, and mostly against the boss battles, unfortunately, because the camera in those sections is pretty bad. It's pretty bad. I found those sections were kind of frustrating, and a lot of the bosses take way too long to kill, I thought. And the controls on the dragon aren't great because you have to constantly keep pressing X to keep hovering up and up. Like, if you don't press X, your dragon will slowly lower to the ground and then eventually just land on the ground, which that can be annoying, having to constantly adjust your height. And I found some attacks were like unavoidable when you're on the dragon, it seemed. You do have like a dodging move with the dragon. You have a dodging move on the ground as well. Like I said, with the story, you have disciples that you can bring in with you on the different missions. And before you go out on missions, there's a shop you can visit to upgrade your weapons, which is where one of my minor complaints comes in. You get money throughout the levels dropped from enemies and in crates and stuff like that, which is, you spend on buying weapons and upgrading them. And weapons are pretty damn expensive in this game, and to upgrade them as well. And not only do you need like a shit ton of money to upgrade these weapons, you have to have these materials, like these base materials, like gold, silver, bronze, that you find in the levels, and from doing some side missions. So it takes so many resources to upgrade weapons that it's like I didn't have very many weapons fully upgraded, to be honest. I kind of kept like the same weapons that I was used to and used them throughout the entire game pretty much, because I only had enough money to really like have like a few good weapons and then just upgrade them to the fullest. So yeah, that was kind of annoying. I wish things were a bit cheaper in that sense. But you have your main story missions, and like I said before, you got your branches, branch A, B, C, and D that you have to go through. And then you've got the side missions, which this is probably my biggest complaint with the gameplay. Like, the main missions are good. There's a lot of variety to them. The only mission I don't like in the main story were like these two missions where there's like a sun that basically heats the whole area, and if you're not walking in shade, you're constantly getting damaged. That kind of gimmick I hate in any game, and it was especially frustrating here. But the side missions I thought were just awful. There are a couple good ones. Actually, no, there isn't. I didn't like any of them. There's like ones where you have to like. I was really frustrated with these side missions. I'll give you my reason for that a bit later, but for instance, like there's these ones where you have to destroy 3 chests in a time limit, these treasure chests with a certain weapon, and there's hundreds of enemies constantly attacking you while you try to break these chests, and you can't just kill the enemies because the time limits on these side missions are extremely strict. I mean, like this one side mission where you had to kill these 3 chests, and one of them was on this platform where archers were shooting at you while you were trying to break this chest on a platform. It was one of the most frustrating things. Like, it took me forever to get that done. And then you had these levels where you had to kill certain enemies to pick up loot. You had to pick up a certain amount of loot. And there's enemies with these bombs that when you kill them, they drop these bombs, and after a few seconds they explode. And it's almost impossible to tell where these enemies are. Like, there's just so many of them. There's so many bombs dropping, and it's almost impossible to dodge out of the way in time that you're constantly getting hit. And add to the fact that you have this strict time limit, and they're really frustrating, especially since you basically have to do them to get the ending D, which brings me to my next complaint, which is the fact that you have to unlock all the weapons to get the ending D. Like, you'll get the 3 branches, you'll go through them, and then you'll unlock ending D, and then when you try to select it, it says, oh, you have to collect all the weapons, you're at this percentage. It's this completely arbitrary way to, like, pad out the game that really bugged me. I don't know why this was even in the game. I guess Drakengard 1 you needed to do the same thing to get one of the endings, but I don't know. It's just really tedious. I had to grind out, like, a bunch of gold in these side missions and then do the really frustrating side missions to get some of the hidden weapons there. It was just so much extra time that it just wasn't fun. Branch D was good when I eventually got to it. I just wish it wasn't such a pain in the ass to get to it, which I that's like a topic I want to bring up in another video, like true ending, a discussion on like true endings, because I found with a lot of games recently, like to get the true ending is so either obscure or just such a tedious like pain in the ass to do that it's like I don't know. I kind of like I don't know. I'll talk about that for another video, but that was very frustrating, having to get all the weapons. But that would even lead me. That would lead me to my absolute biggest complaint with this game, and that is the final boss of Branch D, if you can call it a final boss. Instead of it, and don't worry, there's no spoilers here. Well, no, it's not really spoilers. Basically, it's not an actual fight. It's a rhythm game. And I guess it's a throwback to Drakengard 1, but this rhythm game is horrible. Like, the music is excellent that plays throughout this rhythm section. And I know TG Appileus was talking about this on Facebook. He was just, he was really, really frustrated by this, and I was curious to see just how frustrating this was going to be, because I was reading online too. Apparently, everyone has had major problems with this, and like you have to like basically time these notes that fly at your. I don't want to explain it too much because it will go into spoiler territory, but it's basically this rhythm game where the audio cues are almost impossible to like. It's also impossible. It's like impossible to listen to these audio cues. Everything's really muffled and muted. And the timing is completely off. I was in perfect rhythm, and I swear I was missing them for like no reason at all. Like it's almost like there's like some kind of audio delay. And it's like this like huge, like it's at least a 7-minute section where one mistake and you fail. You're done. You have to game over. Do it all over again. It is the most frustrating thing, and I got all the way to the ending. I did it. I hit all the notes. I was feeling good. It goes to a black screen, right? And you think you're done. It goes to a black screen, and some dialogue starts playing, and then all of a sudden you hear this music note out of nowhere, and then I was just like, wait, what? And then fail. I guess you have to press to press a note during this black screen with a bunch of dialogue. And I failed, and it was like right at the very end. At that point, I was just like, fuck it. I can't, I'm not doing this. This is not worth it. And then I just went on YouTube and watched the ending. Again, I have less patience with that kind of shit than some people. But it's, I don't know, it's just such a weak way to end the game. It really left the game like on a sour note for me. But I mean, other than that, and some of those complaints I brought up before with the gameplay, it's a fun game. The combat's fun. It's very bloody too. There's good variety to it. It's a hell of a lot better than Drakengard 1 in that regard. And I still think if you enjoy hack and slash games, you're gonna find a lot to enjoy here in terms of the gameplay. It's definitely frustrating. I'll give it that. Like, and it could be better. And I guess with that, let's talk about the visuals. It's not a good looking game. I mean, the cutscenes look great, and I like the character models. The characters are probably the best looking things in the parts of the game. But the environments are like really, I don't know, like really low quality textures. They're very bland. And the game, it's like artistically, it's pretty nice. On a technical level, though, it's pretty bad. The frame rate is pretty atrocious. I gotta say, it's like probably 25 frames per second usually, sometimes dipping to like maybe 15 to 20. Like it gets really bad, especially in like some of the dragon segments where you call your dragon to breathe fire on some of the enemies. That's where the frame rate just absolutely takes a shit. It's never in the realms of like unplayability. Like I didn't find it, like it was distracting sometimes and definitely messed up some of my combos. But it wasn't enough to ruin the game for me. But I'm not much of a stickler for frame rate anyways. But it's definitely rough, and it's for sure noticeable. But it's just on a technical level, the game just doesn't run all that great either. There's a lot of stuttering. There's frame tearing, like insane frame tearing in this game. Screen tearing, sorry, screen tearing, not frame tearing. So yeah, if you're really bothered by that kind of stuff, you might find it hard to push through. But I don't know. I generally don't think it's so bad as to make you want to stop playing the game. The music is really good. Done by the composer that did Nier soundtrack, which is like one of the best soundtracks ever. This soundtrack's not quite as memorable as that. There just isn't quite as many memorable tracks, but all the tracks here are very good. There's some like somber tracks, some really hot, energetic, upbeat tracks, some epic, grandiose tracks. It covers a wide spectrum, and definitely fits the game. Yeah, I don't really know much more to say about the music. It's really good. I don't know if it would rank as like one of my favorite soundtracks of the year, but well, it's up there. It's certainly one of the best soundtracks I've heard in like a Japanese game in a while. I must say, but it's certainly better than Drakengard 1 soundtrack, which, my God, like that, I hated the music in Drakengard 1. One of the few games where I had to actually mute the music. It was so annoying. But yeah, the music here is excellent. Voice acting is actually really good. I really like the voice acting. I mean, it's a lot of these voice actors that you've probably heard before. Zero is voiced by the same person who did who voiced Mitsuru in Persona 3, which that threw me for a loop at first because this character's very different from her that character, and with all the it was interesting hearing her voice the main character. I could see Mikhail's voice maybe being annoying for some, but I think it fits that like the character. So and he's just Mikhail's a great character. I gotta say, like the dialogue between Mikhail and Zero is always really, really good and really, really funny. But yeah, voice acting across the board is great, even for like the disciples and the sisters. It's a bit over the top at times, but it's quite good overall. The lip syncing though is completely off during cutscenes. Like they didn't even bother with lip syncing. Like you can definitely tell this was like it seemed rushed to me, this game. But at the same time, I mean, it is a low budget game. You got to cut it some slack, right? Like it's technically not very sound, but it is a low budget game, and for what it is, it's still pretty damn good. But I think that about covers it. I guess other things in terms of gameplay, like you've got like you can buy like items and potions and stuff. I had to make use of potions quite a bit in this game. There's like strength and defense potions too. There's also an intoner mode. If you like, what was it, like clicking in the analog sticks, I think. It basically like goes into super hyper mode where you're really fast and you do many attacks at once and you're super beefed up for a limited time, and you can keep filling that up by attacking enemies. Which that's very helpful in this game. It demolishes bosses and sub-bosses pretty quick. Another minor complaint, they reuse the same like mini bosses over and over again a lot. Very minor complaint there, but yeah, I think that's about it. There's obviously probably stuff I'm missing, like always with these videos, and but yeah, it's a very good game. I was very surprised by this. Definitely the biggest surprise so far this year. Maybe tied with Wolfenstein. So if you're like me and didn't care for Drakengard 1 and 2, I'd still say give this a chance. I don't know if I mentioned it. It's a prequel to Drakengard 1. You don't need to have played Drakengard 1 and 2 to understand this game or to get a lot out of this game. But yeah, it's if you like hack and slash games, or if you're just looking for a game with a crazy ass and really engaging story and characters, definitely get this. It's even like $10 cheaper than a full-priced PS3 game, so there's that too. I didn't get that collector's edition because, again, like I said, I was iffy on this game in the first place, but I'm definitely glad I bought this game. Yeah, very good. I'm sure it will be making my top 10 games of the year. It's not. I don't quite enjoy it as much as like say like Crack Lotus. I was talking to him and he really loves this game. I don't think I quite like it as much as he does, but it's still a very good game, and I'm very glad I played it. But that will do it, guys. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.